Well, and you're going to have to excuse my voice because I've been fighting late since last night. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, we want you to lend us both of your ears one more time because we've got something to have to do. Let's get this music out of here and we continue on. So, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, I thank you. I welcome you for taking the time to be part of this show tonight. Please come in because we're going to have the book giveaway at the end of the show. And down there, ticket across the bottom is just type in hashtag book. That's hashtag book in the comment. And it'll go to our gizmo and we'll spin the gizmo at the end of the program. So, we're delighted. There's my old buddy up there in the corner, Mr. Ed Temple out of Columbus, Ohio. It's good to see you, bud.
Thank you. It's good to be back on.
You, I must say that you're looking right chipper.
Well, I guess looks can be deceiving.
Well, yeah, that's what they say. And my eyesight's not like it used to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, our guest for tonight is Tommy Neiman out of Florida. And I just know that you're going to be blessed by what this man brings us tonight. I've been anticipating this for, I don't know, I guess since the day after Easter when Tommy and I hooked up and made arrangements and started chatting and talking. And wow, here we are. I've been anticipating this. Welcome, Tommy.
Great to be with you guys, for sure.
We've got so much ground to cover. And if you see me looking up, I'm looking up this other monitor because I'm working off of both of them. And if I blow something up, everybody knows when they watch the George Espinlab show. I think that's why they watch it sometimes, Ed, just to see what I blow up.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. But if you see me looking up here, I'm working this other monitor. That's where I got some things that we're going to shoot down here on the screen. So, Tommy, I played your Unshackled program where you were featured on Unshackled. I played it in February, on February 26th of this year, several months ago. And when did they do your dramatization?
You know, that probably was, well, the Unshackled was a good number of years ago. They probably did the dramatization, oh gosh, it probably close to 10 years ago, I would say.
And listen, if you that are watching, you that will be watching, please take the time. It's right down on our page. It's the Tommy Neiman story. If you haven't heard it, take the time and listen to it. It's old time radio in the 21st century. That's what I call it. And it's a tremendous story. And it will really, really speak to your heart. Tommy, you're down there in Florida. What is it, St. Lucie?
Yep. I'm in St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie area.
And is that where you grew up?
Yep. Grew up here, born actually in a neighboring county, but came over here just in my infancy and have been here my whole life.
Hmm. And are you still active in the first responding?
Yeah, well, to a degree. The line work, as far as being on the line, I'm no longer doing, but with actually three different departments, I'm working in a chaplaincy capacity and still respond with a neighboring county. So yes, I guess in some ways I still am active as far as responding, but I have a lot of just different avenues of service to my department, which is the St. Lucie County Fire Rescue Department here in St. Lucie County. And we're a big department. We have, we're going on 18 and 19 stations with them coming on shortly. We we fly. We provide flight medics for an air service. We have an airport, so we have a crash truck and an airport unit, and we're extremely prominent here in the county. We're the only county's department, and of course, if you know Southeast Florida along the coastline, which our county, has a good amount of coastline just above West Palm Beach, and so it's crowded, and so we have a good number of people. Our department, oh gosh, probably the last time I remember, we were probably over 40,000 calls, both EMS and fire. And, my role in that department has primarily been a firefighter and paramedic.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, come in. Don't be afraid to come in. We don't bite. We tell people this every show. We don't bite. We want you to come in and participate. And if you're interested in this book drawing, put in the comment section #book to make you eligible for the drawing. So many people sit on the outside looking in. We want you just to come on in. And if you have any questions for Tommy, pop them up there. We'll put them up on the screen, and he can answer them for you. I'll put this up there real quick if I don't blow something up. This is Tommy's website. Let me get us out of the way here. I didn't want to do that. Okay. This is Tommy's website. And his website can be found at TommyNeiman.com. Now, when you go to his website, there is so much information. There are some videos, and take the time to watch them because, wow, powerful, powerful, powerful. It tells you all about Tommy. It tells you about his books that he has written, and we'll put them up there too for you. But go to TommyNeiman.com. There is tons of information there. So please don't be afraid to go there, and you can purchase the books at Amazon and what is it, Barnes and Noble, Tommy?
Yeah, actually, over the last week, this Rookie Rescuer children's book has been released from a publisher out of South Carolina, and we're actually being carried by Walmart and Target. Pretty much all the bookseller retail. I was checking the other night, and there's a couple of pages of different retailers. Some of them obviously, and some of them I don't know. My publisher with Rookie Rescuer did a press release, and I guess a lot of the retailers like what they saw, which is a blessing, and a lot of them are carrying it now.
Let me put this Rookie thing up here because this is so neat. It's called Rookie Rescuer. Excuse me. And there it is. And that's the home page, and you can scroll down there and see. Tommy, this is what, from grades 2 to 6?
Yeah, 2nd through 6th grade is probably the most formidable, children's ages that the book is kind of written towards.
And what was it that inspired you to do this type of book?
Well, seeing just so many children coming to fire stations over the years, and just knowing that they have such an intrigue with fire trucks, ambulances, and any really first responder vehicle. especially when they're buzzing down the road, lights and sirens, really led me to believe that we could go one step further. And certainly from a chaplaincy side and through the calls that I share in the book, I felt like I could go one step further and take them to the scenes. And I do that by describing the calls. Actually, the subtitle of the book is Learning About God and First Responder Work Through Real Calls. And I think that's going to be really a major draw to parents, because obviously at that age, 2nd to 6th grade, it would be the parents that see this project. And I call it a project because it's really a workbook. They're going to go on 12 calls that I've had in my career. They write in then answers to practical questions, which is teaching them about first responder work. And then they have a follow-up section of spiritual questions where they see some of the spiritual truths that could be found from the call. And of course, I have a memory verse for each section or each chapter, which is a call. And then they have words to learn, definitions. There's a lot of academic skills that are given in and through the book, which obviously is a plus for parents to know that their kids are going to be learning. You know, those are reading and writing times and word recall and story recall and memorization. There's a lot of great academic skills. And the real draw is that they're going to certainly be caught up in the nature of the calls, just like their parents will probably be. And at the same time, by being drawn into the calls, they're going to really exercise those academic skills that are needed in those grade school years. And then we have a section there that just really teaches about God, teaches about Jesus. And then we have 3 project field trip visits, but these are educated visits to a fire station, a fire hydrant. Not a lot of adults know the parts of a fire hydrant, but they're everywhere. And so it's kind of a lesson in the fire hydrant field trip to learn about a hydrant. And then they have an EMS visit where they'll learn about the rescue end, the ambulance, you know, the stretcher, the things that happen inside the ambulance based on the calls that I share, because some of those are EMS calls that I share in the book. And then there's you see there on the screen, a rookie rescuer certificate that they can get if they've completed the book. They can cut that out, and their parents can maybe frame it if they want to, and they can really become an official rookie rescuer. And that's what the goal and the really ambition that the kids should get, is to be able to finish the book, do all the questions, and then of course we provide answer sheets in the back so that you know, the right answers are there for the parents to grade their kids. And then they have an achievement, and it's something that's along the lines of something they may like to do one day possibly. And even if they don't, it doesn't lessen the interest at this level that they have. You know, if you got a fire truck or a police car, an ambulance driving by, lights and sirens, or all of them, you go past a kindergarten play yard and all those kids' faces will be pressed up against the fence,
right,
checking it out. So I've gone one step further. I'm going to go ahead and take them to the scenes, and they're going to really get into the calls, and they're presented in, they're serious calls that I present, obviously, but they're done in a non-graphic way, but yet a real way.
right.
And so I think that's what the draw. I think that's why, you know, even the general retailers out there are jumping on this thing, and it's can be more of a blessing to me.
How long did it take you to do this? Tommy?
I play the animated character, George. I'm the firefighter Tom guy. And so obviously with my name, Tommy Neiman, I want to be that guy because they're my calls. So I'm Firefighter Tom. And as you see the dog on the screen, that's Blaze. And he's the only fictitious character because he by nature of the type of dog he is a great friend of firefighters, and it's kind of the firefighter's dog, if you will. And a lot of firefighters, including myself, have probably had a Dalmatian at one time or another. We certainly had one, and we named him Matches. But this is Blaze.
There's some folks that's watching from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Tommy. I think you know them.
Oh yeah, that's a couple there that I actually did their wedding.
Wow.
As a chaplain, I officiated their wedding in the Pittsburgh area, and what a blessing it was. That's Chrissy and RJ, and they're doing good. It's great to see them tune in.
Ed?
Yeah. What I was curious about, as you see that's why I put the label coach on there, because that's how I identify. That's my one of my identities. But I wanted to find out what some major thing that has happened as a chaplain. And I think you said you were a chaplain for 26 years, right?
Yeah, I have worked with the New York Mets in their organization as a chaplain. What a blessing. Of course, spring training only, because I'm in Florida, and in our county, we have the New York Mets for spring training. And just have been blessed at an early age. I was a real baseball player and fan. I played in college, and God just really blessed me with an opportunity in my early 20s after I had finished playing college baseball locally here, and went and knew some of those guys that were already involved. And before I knew it, I was having a Sunday chapel with those guys, and sometimes a Wednesday Bible study. And so a lot of those guys became good friends, and I've had, a lot of major league guys that I knew and palled around with from becoming close friends while they were unknown, and now they're, millionaire baseball players, and it's been great there. But really, to answer your question, the greatest role of a chaplain that I've had in my years since being ordained as a minister to fill that chaplain's role was on the piles of Ground Zero in 2001. I was invited to help give out the urns to all the victims' families in a massive urn ceremony, shortly after. But I also had an opportunity as a chaplain and a firefighter, obviously, to get permission to be on the piles while they were still burning, actually, and to just be available for chaplains' needs. I was on a radio program there, and part of that came from my first book, Sirens for the Cross. Was blessed to have a good reception of that book among some of the New York City firefighters, even before 9/11. And so it was just a huge opportunity to be a part in a spiritual way for that tragedy that the world knows about. And of course, we in our country will always remember. And that's one of our firefighter given token phrases we will never forget. And 343 of my fellow firefighters, paid the price of the ultimate sacrifice in their lives. when those buildings collapsed. And that doesn't take away from the other tragedies of that day with the plane crash in Pennsylvania. One of the police officers that helped with the 8 people that helped to overtake the hijackers in that plane was a police officer friend of mine that I had worked scenes with. She was on that flight, and of course, being trained as a police officer, she was part of the effort to overtake the hijackers. And we worked some pretty good scenes in our career. Obviously, the violent crimes that where someone is shot, someone is stabbed, we're both on those scenes. And I just remember her well from one particular scene where a guy was, threatened to harming himself. And he had a knife, and she really was able to talk him away from going at her. She had him at gunpoint, and I just remember her being so calm. And she was the primary officer there that was right there in the midst dealing with him. The other officers, like with us, we happened to be in the area from another call, and so we actually got there very early in that scene. And she talked that guy out of doing anything to harm himself or her, or get shot in the process of trying to harm her. And then I was able to help treat that guy and just check what his sugar was, check what some other things that might have contributed to his wayward thinking that put him in that predicament to be at a crucial moment that he could have taken his life or taken or tried to take someone else's life. And so CC Lyles was her name, and she was on that flight 93 that crashed into Pennsylvania, but saved a lot of lives from what could have been taken if that plane had crashed into wherever, in Tenton, Washington it was. And then, of course, the Washington, the Pentagon, the crash there. So, yeah, my chaplaincy work through 9/11 has to be my biggest my biggest highlight in my whole career. And during that time, of course, I'm going to shift every third day, and you're always a chaplain, even though you're responding and you're crawling around in a building fire, you're crawling around in a car wreck, trying to figure out, who you're gonna try to has the best chance of survival and work on them, and just some really some tough scenes in 30 years of responding to some pretty serious incidents in my career.
Tommy, that was in your Unshackled story, the man that jumped from the balcony that wanted to end his life. Alan was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened, I mean, he went through the bottom. His life was just tore up, upside down, sideways. I mean, he just lost all hope, and he tried to take his own life. And you happened to be there that day when you wasn't scheduled to work that day.
Right.
And tell me and the viewers about that scene that happened many, many years ago. And do you know if he is still living or how everything?
Yeah. He's still doing good. He's down south of me. He really had a rough day and was going through a rough time in his life. And he had decided that he was going to end his life. And he traveled into our county. He pulled into a parking lot and had taken a gun and recently purchased it. And he was going to end his life. But when he went to do that, the ammunition, the shells he got were the wrong shells, so they didn't work. So he looked at that building and thought, well, if I can get in it, I'll just jump off it. And so he jumped in the elevator, and he had gotten through the front door. Someone else had opened it, and it was one of those high-rise condos, and got in the elevator, and it stopped at the 8th floor. And he had thought that, well, that's high enough. The people that he saw that were going on the elevator didn't recognize him, and they more or less were wondering who he was, and he panicked and thought, well, I'm going to go out. So he ran to the end of the hallway and was able to open a window. And so he jumped, and he did land feet first, which probably did save his life, but really God saved his life, because if he'd hit anything else, he would have died. He shattered both legs. He had compound fractures. They were sticking all through his legs. And then where I came in was that they had called me, and I had been offered an opportunity to go over there and fill in for some overtime. And I had never really been to that station. Like I said, we have many stations. So I went, and that station's not a real busy station as far as calls, but that call came in. We hurried down there, and I found what was a really desperate guy that had hurt himself very badly. And of course, I was able to treat him, try to stabilize those fractures, and try to keep the bone ends from rubbing without infection, and started IVs on him, and gave him pain medication, of course, and then was able to talk with him, because we had about a 15-minute transport time. And of course, that's when he shared about his will not to live. And I was really able to then just share with him that God didn't want him to take his life. And of course, at that time, he really didn't believe in God. He told me that. And I said, well, God was still watching over you, because he had just commented, he said, I couldn't even get the right bullets to kill myself on the way in. And so we got him in, and I remember the doctors in the ER taking a look at him and saying, this guy's never going to walk again. And so I finished up with our completion of the call. I did my report, and I went back over to the treatment area where they were working on him. And I said, hey, man, I'm still praying for you, and I'm going to come back and see you. And that was in a hospital that was actually in the next county, because our fire station was located close to the county line. So we were going to their hospital because it was the nearest hospital, which is what we're required to do. And so I did travel down there. He had had surgery all through the night, and traveled down there that next afternoon, began to just talk with him. And what was just so neat was, after a few days, I just knew God was saying, just keep visiting him, just listen to him. And, God works, like he says in the Bible, in mysterious ways. And so his heart began to soften. And long story short, he prayed to receive Christ in that room, and became a Christian. And we became friends after that. And I eventually became the best man in his wedding.
Wow.
And the miraculous part of it is all, even though he has a slight limp, he is walking around today on those legs. And that was just a very meaningful call. I share that in Sirens for the Cross, a little bit more detail, but for time's sake here, I just wanted to kind of overview the highlights of that. That's not in Rookie Rescuer. I had quite a few other calls, I thought, and some of them are actually even more dramatic than that. However, just with the nature of that call, I thought I've got a few other calls in my career that will still be inspiring, and so that call's in the Sirens for the Cross book.
Ed?
Yeah.
But thanks, Coach. That's a great question.
I have a question for you also. He's um, when obviously you're a chaplain, and obviously you're on the scene doing all the paramedics. You're seeing life and death on a constant basis. How do you convince somebody that God exists when they see all this tragedy?
Well, I really, that's a great question. I really can't convince anyone that God exists. That we know scripturally comes from the power of God revealing himself to anyone that, and he, like scripture says, he does show himself to us in many ways. I mean, from the beauty of nature to, consequential things to just situations. But truly it's the work of the Holy Spirit. My real sense on the scenes is not to beat the Bible over anyone's head at all in any sense whatsoever. But I do feel like if I have a sensitivity and I'm praying, if it's God's will, that person would come to see that God does exist. A lot of times it's just like I shared with, my buddy that jumped. He just didn't realize that he should have died in two ways. Instead of just being frustrated about not taking his life or being able to take his life, he was unaware that his life had been preserved in a very supernatural way. Most people fall from 80 feet, don't live. And, all the absorption of that fall, of course, went into his legs and, spared probably his organs and his upper trunk area from slamming into the gun and slamming into the ground and busting his liver. And he just could have had let alone his head. If he hits his head from that distance, he's not living. I mean, I just know that from seeing falls from even lesser heights where they're gone. They're gone. That's just the real reality of it. But in his particular situation, when I can be sensitive to sharing with him that he truly should have died, and he had gotten the ammunition from the gun dealers. So most gun dealers that issue a gun and issue the ammunition, they're not going to get it wrong on the ammunition.
Right.
So, there's the supernatural that comes into play that some people aren't aware. And if I can, in a very positive way, reveal to a victim, to someone that, could have been in a house when a propane tank exploded, or, been caught up in the fumes in their bed long enough to breathe a couple good breaths of, noxious, toxic fumes, that they would have died, then maybe God uses that to help them or he's using me to reveal that to them. God does it all. I mean, I don't need to say a word and their heart can be so touched that they'll come to know the Lord. But if I'm that vessel to be used, then first of all, I'm blessed to be used as a vessel. And then secondarily, they see those miraculous supernatural events that could have happened. And then they come to realize, hey, there must be a God. And that's the joy that's been in my career.
As you spent all these years as a first responder and the brotherhood amongst all first responders in all those departments, tell our viewers the things that those men and women go through. I know words cannot explain it. I spent 19 months in Vietnam, so I don't even try to tell people what 19 months in Vietnam was all about because they just don't get it. But your ability must be fulfilling when you get a chance to minister to brothers and sisters that maybe they're facing this PSTD, or they're facing oppression or depression because of the things that they see, and they're living on this high tension wire every day they're at work. It must be fulfilling to be able to minister to those people, and it must be fulfilling to them to know that they can come to the chaplain, and he cares, and he can hear their heartbeat, and he knows exactly what they're going through, and he can talk to them about Christ and the promises of the Word of God. Tell us something about the people that you've worked with over the years and how you've ministered to them.
No doubt. Well, PSD is real. It's being discovered more and more of its prominence. It's always been there. And in just these later years, it has been really aggressively approached by the administrations of fire departments, the military, and anyone that's exposed to real life tragedy and children, suffering and things that are unpleasant to the view. And no doubt the view of some of the things that I've seen are unpleasant, to say the least. And yet, you're right. There's certainly comes a point in time where the big question why comes into play. And granted, God has blessed me with an ability just to communicate scripture, to communicate just things that can help people. I don't always know what I'm going to say, but I just carry a sensitivity that God is there because he's everywhere. And that sensitivity and knowing that he's there oftentimes is what I'm blessed with the words to share with someone. And people approach me all the time. And obviously, it's in confidence. And, I can't share about those, but I would say almost weekly, a firefighter gives me a call, or, a situation develops where I know that, I need to share that I'm available. Because that chaplaincy end, which really is just a kind of a formality, really that awareness of God and that belief that he is there and that he still comforts. We live in a fallen world, and there's always going to be car accidents. There's always going to be pain and suffering, and just really tragic things happen. And that's the end of the calls that we go on, is something has happened in someone's life that they will never forget. I have people that come up to me all the time that are in, what we would call like minor accidents or minor illnesses, but they don't forget that. They may all run together, and I've been on thousands of calls, literally thousands of calls. And it's hard for me sometimes for someone to come up to me and say, do you remember when I hit the curb and I bumped into another car, and I thought I was okay, but I wanted to make sure you guys transported me? Well, I've had hundreds of those, and so I don't always remember those particular people, but I act like I do, right? No, I don't act like I do, but I tell them that I was just grateful that they have recognized me as someone that cared for them, and that everything worked out for them. And even with people that things don't always work out, they're crippled because of a wreck, or they're even paralyzed, which I've had. Their gratefulness for me really is such a blessing to hear from them personally. If I see them, or with the essence of the books now that I've done, people come back into communication with me that I sometimes have trouble remembering when it was, a minor call compared to a major near-death tragedy or accident. So but yes, back to what you're saying, the chaplaincy end of it has granted me as I guess you would call it a resource person to go to. And the PSD is real. And the effects of it, the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, people are looking for peace and comfort and answers. And mainly that peace really in the utmost end is going to be found in that relationship with the Lord, that relationship with Jesus. Because really, when you think about the short time amount we spend on the face of the earth, that relationship is a key point because we're eternal beings. We got an eternal soul. And so, yes, I feel like I've been blessed to be able to help people that have been in PSD. And we have, some very good programs out there that I'm also a part of. And they are, debriefings and, programs to help people to be able to talk and to be able to understand that it's okay to feel the way they do with having seen such great destruction or going through a critical event like a child that, gets tragically killed in some way or another. Those are hard things, and I've had them. And, I know what they go through. And I didn't have really the comfort of God, the comfort of that relationship of knowing him personally and knowing Jesus in my heart and my life, then I'd be just as peace seeking as they are.
There was, and I was watching one of those videos on your website. Excuse me. And you were talking about when you went to ground zero and you begin to go with the other fellows through the rubble, and you talked about the cross.
Yeah.
And you went by it the first time.
Yeah.
When you come back out around, you saw it. And yeah. I'll let you tell the story, but you missed it the first time. But when you come back around the second time, it in essence lit up for you.
Right.
And you said what that cross symbolizes as we go through the storms of life. Share that with us.
Oh yeah, that was very powerful lesson for me personally. When we got access and were taken literally by officials to the piles, which that's the way you did. You didn't just drive up in your car. I actually came in a police cruiser, and they, escorted me and some other firefighters down there. And walking in, I was so caught up with the rubble piles and the buildings that were still standing around the two debris piles. And walking as I went, I literally walked by the cross, probably a couple 100 feet, but it never got picked up in my initial walking around there. And so I, of course, then lost sight of it. I ended up on, the paths that went up and around the debris piles. And of course was sensing that destruction and sensing that discouragement by what I saw and what I smelled. They had done some air quality samples over the pile and the smoke that was coming up, and they were finding DNA, human DNA, in those smoke particles. And I had learned about that at one of the command posts that was at the site. And so it wasn't until really I had worked at the different areas on the piles and was leaving later that night that, obviously in the same path back to the cruiser, the police cruiser, and then saw the cross. And that really was such a blessing because I was actually feeling discouragement. I knew I was there as a fellow firefighter, a chaplain, and yet the discouragement hit me. And then I saw that cross at the end of the time I had on the piles, and really that was just a blow away sight that I saw. It was perfectly formed. Those steel beams were in the exact dimensions of a cross as we know it. And I just walked up, I saw it, and I said, this just tells us that regardless of what tragedy there is in life, even as big as ground zero, that God is still in control. And that's when I really experienced peace on the piles. But I missed it, and the real message to me was that we have little ground zeros in our lives, all of us. And of course, the scenes I run, those are kind of big personal ground zeros for the victims. And yet, a lot of times in life, when we get some type of little ground zero in our life, we immediately start looking at the damage, like I did. We look at the destruction, we look at the fallout, and we get discouraged when all the whole time there, the cross is right up front. But we can choose to kind of look in the damaging directions, and then we kind of get what we ask for. We get discouragement, we get frustration, and then all the while, Jesus is saying he's that Savior that died on the cross, that I can give you the peace and the comfort to get through what you've just gone through in this fallen world that we live in. And so we could spare ourselves a lot of pain, maybe not so much physical pain in the moment of injury or accident or burned or what, but certainly the peace that is all knowing, and the Bible describes as just a peace that passes all understanding.
Right.
Because it is not understanding if you don't have the Lord, if you don't have that Spirit of God living within us to give us that peace, then you're spared a lot of discouragement. And so my real challenge to myself was to think about the cross. And I really wasn't thinking about that going in. I was just caught up in all the destruction. And so had I seen that going in, I would have realized who was in control. And those, unpeaceful thoughts about what I was seeing and where I was walking and what I was smelling, which was basically human flesh in those smoldering, smoke. I would have still known, despite all that God is in control. And he put that cross there to let the world know that he had victory over the worst thing that had come to those piles. And that was thousands of lives lost. And he had power over death and has power over death. And, the buildings can be rebuilt, the planes rebuilt, but the lives that were lost are souls.
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful thing about God is he promises us a glorious body. It's going to be far better than any building that's built, any plane that's rebuilt. And that he had victory over the worst thing that happened at Ground Zero and at Washington and in Pennsylvania. The worst thing wasn't the objects that they were in or the damage that was done. It was the death was the worst thing. If somehow miraculously 2,000 people, everyone would have got out, no one would have died in the plane crashes. And of course, this is crazy talk, but 9/11 wouldn't have been the tragedy it is because people lived,
right?
But people died, and people die at the end of my scenes. And regardless of how much I work on them in the back of the truck and shoot every drug that I have that I can give them to try to restore a heartbeat or shock them as many times as I can with those paddles or the pads we put on them, they still die. And, that's the end as we know it. But Jesus had victory over death. We celebrated Easter, about less than 2 weeks ago. And the greatest victory is to be able to live even when we die. And Jesus proved it. I mean, I know in my heart and believe in my heart that Jesus truly was a man. All the, ancient studies reveal that Jesus was truly a man that walked the face of the earth, and he was crucified by Roman crucifixion. That's all part of history. But the real time comes to 3 days later when he defeated death and he rose again. And that's what Easter is all about. And so on ground zero and on the tragedies that I go to, the greatest victory that's needed is victory over what the worst thing that happened. And the worst thing that happened in all those cases and on these scenes that I go to is death. And that cross on those piles represents not only victory over death, but a glorious life and existence with God when there is no such thing as a need for fire trucks. There is no such thing as a need for police cars. There's just a beautiful, just unthinkable, unfathomable existence with an eternal peace. And who knows what all we've got to do up there. I know I'm probably not going to be a firefighter up there, but, and praise God, I don't have to be, but it's going to be a joy that's unthinkable. And so I didn't mean to preach a message here on your show, George,
no, that's all right.
It all deals and goes back to the last moments of someone's life and what happens next. And unfortunately, I've been at that time when a lot of people have been in their last moments alive.
There's a song, that I've known since I was a kid, and I run around here singing it all the time. Now you don't want me to sing it when we're on camera, by no means. But standing somewhere in the shadows, you will find him.
Yeah.
You'll find Jesus, and you'll know him by the nail prints in his hands. Just standing somewhere in the shadows. I don't care how big the storm is, how deep the valley is, how dark it is. Standing somewhere in the shadows, you'll find Jesus.
Yeah.
In all of your loneliness, your pain, you throw up your hands, you just crumble because life isn't worth living anymore. But listen to me. Standing somewhere in the shadows, you'll find Jesus.
Yeah.
He's a friend that knows and understands. We're going to spin this gizmo here in just a second, and then we'll put the books back up there again, Tommy, so we can push out this rescue thing. But there was just so much. And what do you call it? The last tone?
Last alarm.
The last alarm. We're all going to go through the last alarm. It could be today, tonight, tomorrow, but we're all going to hear the last alarm. We'll give you about 10 more seconds if you haven't already. Hashtag book in the comment section. And we're going to spin this gizmo. If I don't blow it up, let me get it all set up here. I had blown him up. I had.
Well, just don't get a need to call fire rescue.
Yeah, right.
Because I'd respond, but I think I'm a long ways away from you, man.
Yeah, it might take you a little while to get here. But all right, we're going to make this thing spin. I hope we are anyhow. But here goes. This is for both of the books that Tommy has written. And let's see who wins this thing. Oh, my. I don't even think we had anybody in there. the winner of the George Espinal show.
Oh my gosh! At least I could have won the thing.
Yeah, you could have won that thing, but
I wouldn't have had a long mailing address to do.
I think what has happened is Facebook's always changing things up.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure, but when you used to go live, let me see here. Yeah. Okay. When you used to go live, you just went live and boom, you were gone. Now when you set up the schedule, they send it over here and put it there, and so I'm not so sure. But look, real quick, if anybody's in here, put hashtag booking, and we'll do this thing again real quick. But I was totally, absolutely surprised. What about you, Ed?
Well, let me tell you this, guys. You guys have been such great hosts to me. And I know a lot of your information has come just from, what I've shared in the book. I'd like to present both you guys and someone else that might want that or that you get word from later. We'll give one out to them. But you two guys, I'd love for you guys to have them and just continue to, I say promote, but to just further coach, take my ministry as far as the Lord would allow you guys and guide you to people. And this Rookie Rescuer project is so new. And we're trying to get into schools, into Christian schools, into wherever God would lead at home schools. So, yes, definitely.
Yeah, I could put it in our school library.
Awesome. That would be great.
Yeah, because Ed, he's an educator, and where is it, Ed? Harvest, whatever it is.
Harvest Prep.
Yeah, Harvest Prep.
Harvest Prep.
Yeah, it's not Harvest whatever it is. It's Harvest Prep. But yeah, we'll push that, Tommy.
Thank you, man.
That was an absolute surprise. Listen, if anybody wants to have an event like any of you first responders out there, and I got you pointed in some directions with some of these first responders, Tommy. But
okay.
Just go to TommyNeiman.com and you can hook up with him. Just hit the events there and contact him, and I think he'll do fine for whatever event that you have, churches, civics groups, whomever. But get a hold of Tommy Neiman and let him minister to you. Tommy, that just surprised me. It just blows me away. And I think a lot of the changes in Facebook had something to do with that, because there's a lot of people that I know that are watching, but they're not in here. And I can't explain that, but that's the way it is. They're watching, but they're not in here because you have to come in another way now than you used to come in. And
gotcha.
That throws a lot of people off. But yeah, wow. Tommy, I thank you for your time, my brother.
Thank you.
I thank you for the words. I thank you for the ministry. I thank you for your life. And we're going to stay in touch. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll keep hooking you up, and we'll get your own show going here whenever you want.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. So, blessings to you, my brother. Ed.
All right, man. You guys have a great one.
All righty.
You too.
Take care now. God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. That was a surprise, Ed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Still live, I think.
Yeah, we're still live. That was a surprise. Man.
Yeah, it happened.